So today we've got Shyamavallabha with us as our guest speaker. Shyam's 27 years old and she's grown up in Krishna consciousness. She was initiated by Jayapataka Swami 4 years ago. She's been leading a girls' Sangha for the past 2.5 years, and her family run monthly Sanghas for the past 13 years. She's been really involved in Bhagavad Gita classes at the Manor over the past few months and does incredible kirtans, likes doing book distribution and doing different festival services. And she's currently working as a vaccine taking officer for the UK Health Security. So over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Rahana. Please be kind to me because this is the first time I'm presenting the Bhagavatam. So I hope I could say something useful. So I'm going to start off with the short kirtan, just to set the mood. And then I'll recite some prayers. And then we'll start off with our summary of chapter 7, Canto 1, chapter 7 of the Bhagavatam. So I'll start off. Share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Right, so today we're going to be discussing chapter 7 of Canto 1, and it's titled The Son of Drona Punished. Does anyone know who the son of Drona was, actually?
Ashwatthama.
Ashwatthama, that's correct. So we'll discover how he basically murders the 5 sons of the Pandavas, actually, and what Krishna says, what his punishment is. But before that, there's some nectarian verses on the glories of the Bhagavatam. So before I start, I wanted to seek blessings of the previous acharyas, all the devotees present online, and my seniors as well, who've joined today, that I may say something useful. So starting off with the invocation prayers, and I've shared it with you on the screen so you can follow along. So, Om Jnanaptimirandasya Nananjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shra Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varchana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhambitam Shah Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpite Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Yasam Tato Jayamudiraye Shinvitam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hriday Antastuhya Bhadrani Vidodnoti Surat Satam Nasta Prayasu Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, chapter 7 is divided into 5 subsections. So verses 1 to 7 talk about Vyasadev's visions and the glories of the Bhagavatam. And that's further divided into 2 subsections. So in verses 1 to 3, we'll see that Shonak Rishi asked Sutadev Goswami about questions about Vyasadev. And then in verses 4 to 7, Vyasadev sees that Maya and the suffering jiva, his miseries will be are mitigated by bhakti, and thus he compiles the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then in verses 8 to 11, Vyasadev teaches Bhagavatam to Sukadev Goswami. So in verses 8 to 9, we'll see why is it that Sukadev Goswami, he was already a self-realized soul, why did he want to study the Bhagavatam, right? And to this, Vyasadev replies, even self-realized souls, the Atma Ramas, desire devotional service. And then in verses 12 to 16, the Pandavas are lamenting for their dead sons because Ashwatthama has killed them. So that's discussed, that episode is discussed in verses 12 to 14. And then in verses 15 to 16, as you could imagine, after you've lost if a mother loses their children, a child, they would grieve, right? So these verses describe Draupadi's lamentation. And then, as a dutiful husband, Arjun then captures Ashwatthama. And then we'll discuss how Ashwatthama, in fear, then releases his Brahmastra weapon. And then how Arjun prays to Lord Krishna for help and advice. And then Lord Krishna responds and tells him to counteract it with his Brahmastra weapon. And then Arjun arrests Ashwatthama. And then we'll discuss how the son of Drona, Ashwatthama, was punished. And then there are 5 arguments that Krishna presented regarding the killing of Ashwatthama. So, and then how Arjun passed his test, and we'll discuss a bit about that, and how surprisingly Draupadi, being the mother of someone who's murdered their child, is still mild and gentle towards Ashwatthama. And she actually tells Arjun, you shouldn't kill him. And we'll look at our arguments for this. And then there's agreement and disagreement with Draupadi's judgment. And then Arjun, being intelligent, he somehow satisfies everybody's the contradictory orders. And we'll see how he does that as well. So, like I said, in verses 1 to 7, describes Vyasadev's vision and glories of the Bhagavatam. So the first question that Shri Shonak Rishi asks is, after Narad's departure, what did Vyasadev do? And Sutta Goswami replies as follows. On the western banks of the Saraswati River, at Samya Prasa, in a cottage, Srila Vyasadeva touched water for purification and sat down to meditate. So that's the opening scene. And then the next verse, basically Vyasadeva is explaining that, and Prabhupada is explaining that, if we engage in devotional service without any tinge of materialism, then Maya, Krishna's external energy, cannot touch us. So in this verse, it said, the verse goes, Bhakti yoga namanasi samyak pranihiti male. So Vyasadeva fixed his mind, perfectly linking it to devotional service, without any tinge of materialism, and apasyat purusham purnam. So the complete personality of Godhead Krishna. And then mayam je tad apashrayam, along with his external energy under his full control. So in this verse, Prabhupada explains in the purport that the only way to understand Krishna fully is to devotional service. And he also explains that that devotional service is a function of Krishna's internal energy. So the external energy, Maya, is actually compared to darkness, because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. So it keeps us in the darkness of ignorance. And the internal potency or superior energy is also called Maya, but it is spiritual Maya, or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. So when one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. Hence, when we perform devotional service, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy. Just as the purport explains, there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. And then Vyasadeva goes on to say, the reason why we're suffering is because of Maya. He says, Yaya samhito jiva. He says the living entity is bewildered by Maya. Atmanam tra gunatmakam. Misidentifies oneself, a product of the 3 modes of material nature. Haropi manatu nartam, although he is transcendental to the modes, and tat kritam shapi padyate, thus undergoes the retractions of material miseries. So we actually, he's saying, we misunderstand ourselves to be a material product. And I'm sure that's most of us actually at this stage. And basically in the purport, Prabhupada explains that this actually means that our present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is actually not natural for us. So you might ask, why does Krishna actually let us become illusioned by Maya? Doesn't he want us to go back to him? That question certainly came to my mind when I read this chapter. But in the purport, Prabhupada nicely explains why he allows Maya to act on us. And in the purport, he says, the Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusionary energy because such performances of the illusionary energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. So just as an affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them in order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father, at the same time, desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusionary energy. Similarly, the king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation. And on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of the illusionary energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusionary energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders onto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. So what's the solution? Krishna is basically saying surrender unto him. So he's saying that the Prabhupada later goes on to explain that this surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusionary energy. The surrendering process is complete by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, conditioned souls are engaged in his transcendental loving service. They get a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only are they gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. So we must surrender to Krishna. This is what it's trying to say. So this means that we're being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment by the external energy of the Lord, and by himself as the spiritual master within and without. So actually, within the heart of every living being, within our heart, the Lord resides as the super soul or Paramatma, and becomes a spiritual master. And from without, he becomes a spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and the initiated spiritual master. So these are the two ways that Krishna guides us. So in verse 6, so Vyasadeva presents the solution to our suffering. And he says, if you perform bhakti yoga, you'll no longer suffer, right? And so the suffering of the jiva can be directly mitigated by bhakti yoga onto Lord Krishna. But people don't know this, he's saying. And therefore, Vyasadeva compiles the Srimad Bhagavatam. So take an extract from this purport. It says that the revival of the dormant affection of love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotees, he may endow with him his loving transcendental service. But even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the supplicious and unwanted miseries of material existence. And such mitigation of material affection does not wait for development of transcendental knowledge, Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. So the only way to understand Krishna again, Prabhupada is saying, is through devotional service, right? And then what's the results of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam? And that's presented in verse 7 of this chapter. Vyasadeva says, the results of hearing the Bhagavatam are Yasyam Vesriyamanayam Krishna Parama Purusha Bhakti Utpadyate Pumsa Soka Moha Vayapaha. So by giving oral reception to the Bhagavatam, the feelings of bhakti for the Supreme Personality of Godhead sprouts up and destroys one's lamentation, illusion, and fear. So it's actually very beneficial to hear the Bhagavatam for us, because Krishna is saying, Vyasadeva is saying, it destroys our fear, illusion, and lamentation. And in the purport, it further goes on to explain this in a nice way. So actually, it says that our devotional service actually begins with hearing about the Lord. And there is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about him. The Lord is absolute in all respects, and thus there is no difference between him and the subject matter heard about him. Therefore, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. And then this purport further goes on to say, by hearing the subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this false complexity of materialism is removed, and real peace in society begins. And it compares the peace, so it goes on to say that, politicians, don't they, they want to try and create a peaceful situation between man and nation and nation. But because they're too attached to material domination, they're an illusion and they're fearful as well. So Prabhupada is saying that the politicians' peace conferences cannot actually bring peace in society. And the only way to bring peace in society, therefore, is by hearing the subject matter described in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So the conclusion of this verse is, simply by hearing the Bhagavatam submissively, we have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thereby attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. So do you want to actually transcend miseries, illusion, and fearfulness? Then we must listen to the Bhagavatam, so Prabhupada's saying. So in verses 8 to 11, Vyasadeva teaches Bhagavatam to Sukadeva Goswami. As we've heard, the reason why the Bhagavatam is rewritten by Vyasadeva is the second time he gives more prominence to Krishna Bhakti on advice of Narad Muni. And then he teaches it to his son, Sukadeva Goswami. And then why is it that, you may ask, why is it that Sukadeva Goswami, who is already self-realized, why did he need to study this Bhagavatam? Well, and then in the next verse, Sutta Goswami answers this. This is also known as the Atma Rama verse. And if you have time to read this, it's such a beautiful verse. It says, he says, even liberated souls are attracted to the transcendental qualities of Lord Hari and desire to render unalloyed devotional service to him. So the verse goes, Atma Ramascha Munayo Nikante Apirukama Gurvanti Aritikam Bhaktim Itam Bhuta Gano Hari. So actually Krishna possesses transcendental qualities that attract everyone, even self-realized souls. So in this word, purport, Krishna is referred to as Urukama, which means the ones whose activities are glorious. Because Krishna's activities obviously can't be compared to anyone else's, the use of the word Urukama is applicable to him only. And then self-realized souls render devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord, as opposed to their own interest, for material enjoyment, to obtain mystic power and liberation, etc. And this mood of selfless service fully satisfies Krishna. And this is the mood that we should try and endeavor to imbibe as practicing devotees too. So when unalloyed practice of sadhana, so then it goes on to say that there is nothing compared with the ocean of bliss of the vision of the personality of Godhead. The personal form of Lord Krishna is so attractive that it comprehends all attraction, all bliss, and all taste. These attractions are so strong that no one wants to exchange them for material enjoyment, mystic powers, and liberation. And that transcendental bliss and the realization of the impersonal Brahman it becomes comparable to the santy waters contained in the pit made by a cow's hoofprint in comparison to this. So actually, this verse goes, Prabhupada goes on to say that actually Lord Krishna attracts everyone. For example, the 4 Kumaras were attracted by the fragrant flowers and tulsi, anointed with the pulp of sandalwood, offered at the lotus feet of Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami, as we will see, was attracted to Krishna transcendental pastimes. The cowherd boys were attracted to his bodily features. Rukmini by hearing his glories. The mind of the goddess of fortune, girls in special cases, and elderly ladies by parental perfection, and the minds of male in humor of servitude and friendship were attracted to Krishna too. And then in this verse, Krishna is referred to as Hari. Why? Because he vanquishes everything inauspicious and takes away the mind of the devotee by awarding pure transcendental love. So therefore, if we remember by remembering Krishna in acute distress, we could be free from all varieties of miseries and anxieties. And if you sincerely practice, if you sincerely try and practice our Krishna consciousness, Krishna will gradually vanquish all obstacles on the path of devotional service for us. So actually, so Sukadeva Goswami was an Atma Ram, right? So, and so knowing that, Prabhupada explains that usually a liberated soul are generally attached to the feature of the impersonal Brahman, with a monoistic view of becoming one with the Supreme Whole. So knowing that, Vyasadeva takes a bit of caution. And so, so he basically teaches him the synopsis of the Bhagavatam, so become attracted to the transcendental activities of the Lord. A moment's association with the devotee can change our life, actually. There's a nice verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It says, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shashrike, Lava Mater Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. And the translation is, the verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with the pure devotee, one can attain all success. So, by the association of pure devotees like Vyasadeva, even the liberated soul, Sukadeva Goswami, became attracted to the transcendental qualities of the Lord. So by the mercy of Sri Narad, Sri Vyasadeva was able to narrate the great epic of Srimad Bhagavatam And by the mercy of Vyasadeva, Sri Sukadev Goswami was able to grasp the import. So the transcendental qualities of the Lord are so attractive that Srila Sukadev Goswami became detached from being completely observed in the impersonal Brahman and positively took up the personal activity of the Lord. So in verses 12 to 6, we see that the Pandavas are lamenting for their sons. So actually, at the end of the Kurukshetra war, so the Pandavas have actually won the battle, and the war has been declared over. But one of the survivors was Dronacharya's son Ashwatthama, and Ashwatthama, he was thinking, if I behead, so what he thinks is he goes to the camp, and he beheads the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi. And he thinks that will please Duryodhana. And then he presents the heads as a prize to Duryodhana. He was lying with his thigh broken, that Bhima had broken. Yeah. So, to his disappointment, obviously Duryodhana wasn't happy with this heinous act. And he wasn't at all pleased. Right? And then obviously you could imagine in verses 15 and 16, upon hearing the news of the death of her sons, Draupadi is crying in distress with tears. And then, to pacify Draupadi, Arjun says, after beheading that Brahmana, I will wipe your tears. And after burning your sons' bodies, you can take baths standing on his head. And this sort of pacifies Draupadi, because when Arjun makes a promise, he basically keeps to his promise. I mean, in the past, we see that he's even prepared to take his own life if he can't fulfill his promise. So why was it that Ashwatthama should be killed? It is because he acted like a butcher. He was an aggressor, and so he needed to be punished, regardless of being the son of a Brahmana. So in the purport, it explained that just like the son of the lawyer cannot be considered a lawyer, the son of a Brahmana just can't be considered a Brahmana just because he has taken birth to a Brahmana. It comes of, you have to have you have to actually qualify to become a Brahmana. So in this purport, it gives the definition of who an aggressor is. So it says an aggressor is an enemy who sets fire to the house, administers poison, attacks all of a sudden with deadly weapons, plunders wealth, or usurps agricultural fields, or entices one's wife is called an aggressor, or one who entices one's wife is called an aggressor. And such an aggressor, though he be a Brahmana or a so-called son of a Brahmana, has to be punished in all circumstances. So now in verses 17 to 34, Arjun captures Ashwatthama. So he's guided by Krishna as his charioteer. And this is the first point where in the Bhagavatam, Krishna actually enters the scene and he speaks for the first time in the Bhagavatam. And how does he enter the Bhagavatam? As the servant of his devotee, as Bhakta Vatsalya. Again, as we saw in the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna acted as Arjun's charioteer. And again, what is he doing again? He's acting as Krishna's servant. So Krishna is magnanimous. He's so magnanimous that he wants to serve his devotee, right? And then, so Arjuna equips himself with armor and weapons, and then sets out to chase Ashwatthama. And then Ashwatthama is seeing Arjun come at him with great speed. He gets, he fleds in fear, so he's running for his life. Not running for his life, but on his chariot with his horses trying to run away as quick as he can. So then he thinks, you know, he thinks my life is in danger now, right? So, and his forces are getting exhausted, and then finding no alternative, Ashwatthama releases the ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra, but he doesn't know how to retract it. I don't know if you guys have watched this. There's a film out on this weapon, Brahmastra. There's a Hindi film out on Brahmastra, and it's like a superpower. It's like they've tried to copy Marvel, but this Brahmastra actually existed for over 5,000 years ago. So yeah, it's a real weapon. So thereupon, a glaring light spread in all directions. Seeing his own life in danger, Arjuna addressed Lord Krishna. So the one thing we should learn over here is that on our path in our spiritual life, whenever we come across a scenario where we're not sure what to do, the best person to approach is Guru, a spiritual mentor, and the scriptures for guidance when we need. And that way will ensure that we take the right action, that we're guided in the right way. So Arjuna then prays to Krishna. He says, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho. He's saying, Krishna, you're the ultimate shelter. Yeah, oh mighty armed Krishna, Bhaktanam Abhyankara. You bestow fearlessness upon your devotees. Tam eko deya manam aparvarga si samshritaha. You are the only one who could give liberation to those who are burning in the fire of material existence. And then Arjuna carries on to say, Krishna, you are transcendental. Tvam adha purusha shakshat. You are the original person. Ishvara prakate para. The supreme controller, transcendental to material nature. Maya vyas vyudasya chit shaktya. Master of spiritual energy that casts away Maya. Kevalya stita atmani. All is situated in internal bliss and knowledge. So Arjuna is glorifying Krishna over here. And he says, Krishna, you're merciful. You know, although you're beyond Maya, you still execute your duties. You still execute Dharma, Artha, Karma, and Moksha. And you do that for the good of conditioned souls like myself. And he says, you know, the reason why you descend to this material world is great as well. And he's saying, you know, he reminds him of the reason why he descends. He's like, Krishna, I need your help now. I'm reminding you of the reason why you descend to this world. And the reason why he's saying Krishna descends to this world is to benefit his friends and the dedicated devotees who are wrapped in meditation on him. So that he's basically referring to himself, and he's saying, Krishna, I need your help. You know, I'm a dedicated devotee. Now tell me what to do in this situation. I don't understand the source of this spreading dangerous effulgence. So Krishna speaks for the first time in the Bhagavatam. He says, you know, that this effulgence he is coming from the act of Ashwatthama, who has released the Brahmastra out of fear for his life. And he does not know how to retract it, actually. So the only way, or the only solution is that, the only solution to counteract this Brahmastra is if you release your own Brahmastra. And so hearing this, basically, Krishna listens to, Arjuna listens to Krishna, and then he circumambulates Krishna and casts his Brahmastra. And then it's described that the effect of the Brahmastra combining is like a great circle of fire covering outer space and the planets. and everyone in the 3 worlds is scorched by the combined heat. And actually in the purport it explains that the heat produced by the Brahmastra can destroy the whole cosmic manifestation. So understanding the will of Lord Krishna, Arjuna at once released the Brahmastra to protect the world from destruction. And then he arrested Ashwatthama. You could imagine the father of the son being angry at the murderer. You could just imagine the scene. So his eyes are blazing in anger, and he dexterously arrests Ashwatthama and binds him with rope like an animal, and then takes him back to the military camp. And then they describe that lotus-eyed Krishna that also spoke in an angry mood. And then he tries to test Arjun's sense of duty and discrimination. So he says, surprisingly, Krishna is telling him to kill Ashwatthama. He's saying, he presents 5 arguments as to why Ashwatthama should be killed. He says, Ashwatthama is a Brahma Bandhu, a friend of a Brahmana. O Arjun, you should not show mercy on this Brahma Bandhu, he has killed innocent boys in their sleep. Then Krishna says, not only has he done this, but he has violated the codes of religious war. He says, Matam Pramatam Unmatam, Suptam Balam Shyam Jadam, Papanam Viratam Vitam, Narupim Hanti Dharmavit. So a noble religion, he's saying, if Ashwatthama was a noble religion, he would not kill a sleeping boy without a chariot, right? So this 10 instances where it's against the codes of religious war to kill the opposition, right? And because he did this, Krishna refers to him as wretched. Ashwatthama is wretched. And he says, a cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being. Why is it for his own well-being? Actually, in the purport, it explains that actually a death sentence is actually beneficial for a murderer. Yeah, you're probably like, what are you on about? Isn't that too harsh? But actually, if you get the punishment in this life, then that soul, the sins that soul has created by committing the murder, it could be washed away in this lifetime, as opposed to in the next life when obviously it's like someone will murder them. So it's like might as well finish the karma now. And then Krishna says, remember your promise. You have promised Draupadi that you will bring her his head. And again, Krishna says, Ashwatthama is a murderer. He's a murderer of your family who has dissatisfied his master and is nothing but the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately. But then in spite of Krishna's encouragement, Arjun, who's described to be a great soul, did not like the idea of killing Ashwatthama. Why? Because he knew that he was the son of his teacher, his military arts teacher, Dronacharya, and therefore he felt very much indebted to Dronacharya. Right? So what he does instead is he reaches the military camp and brings Ashwatthama to Draupadi. And then, surprisingly, Draupadi's anger and rage, she's no longer angry. When she sees Ashwatthama, surprisingly, she's not angry and revengeful. But instead, she's mild and gentle in nature. And she actually shows him due respects as a Brahmana. And it explained that this is because of her well-behaved and female nature. And then, can you imagine a mother supporting a murderer? But this is what Draupadi does. He says, Dharmyam, religious, release him. He's the son of our spiritual master. Dronacharya is your teacher. How can you kill his son? Stop being silly, Arjun. Nayam, justice and gratitude. Remember that, it's by Dronacharya's mercy he learned the military arms. Don't forget that, Arjun. Shokrunam, merciful. So Drona is represented by his son Ashwatthama, right? So in the past, and Kripi is still living, she says. So in the past, when the husband of the wife died, the wife would perform sati. It would basically walk into a fire and also commit suicide. But because Dronacharya's son Ashwatthama was living, Kripi, and representing his father, Kripi didn't basically commit suicide. She's saying that, Kripi is a great lady, and you can't. Just be a bit merciful towards her as well. Nivya Dikam, non-duplicious. It's not good to cause pain to a respectable order, Draupadi says. Saman, equal and compassion. Do not make the devoted wife of Drona cry like me. So obviously, only a mother understands the pain of losing their sons. And therefore, she doesn't want anyone else to undergo the same pain she has. So she's saying, don't make Kripi cry like this. She's not done anything wrong. And then she reminds him of his duty as a Kshatriya to respect the Brahmin order and to protect them. So the belief was that if the kingly administrator order offends the Brahminical order and enrages them, then fire burns the royal family. So, from Draupadi's example, you can see that a devotee of the Lord actually tolerates all sorts of tribulations personally, but still they're never unkind to others, even to their enemies. And these are the characteristics of one who is a pure devotee of the Lord. And at the end of the slide, we probably won't get to this. I've put like a few slides on Mahatma Prabhu's advice on forgiveness, which I thought might be handy. So I'll share the slides with you, but we'll get with you. And then what happens is, so there's an agreement and disagreement with Draupadi's judgment. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, who's Dharmaraj, he's the pillar of truth. He supports the arguments of Draupadi. And Nakul, Sahadev, Satyaki, Arjuna and Krishna, the ladies and others will unanimously agree with Yudhishthira. But you could imagine Bhima. He's like, kill Ashwatthama. And you could just imagine him, So in verses 52 to 58, it describes how actually Arjuna satisfied the contradictory orders. So hearing the words of Bhima and Draupadi, Lord Chaturbhuja, Krishna, spoke smilingly to Arjuna. And so in order to prevent Bhima from killing Ashwatthama and Draupadi obstructing him to save Ashwatthama, Krishna manifests another two arms, and hence he is called Chaturbhuja in this context. And then Krishna says, reminds Arjuna, a Brahma Bandhu is not to be killed, but if he is an aggressor, he must be killed. Fulfill your promise to Draupadi and satisfy Bhima and me. So now Arjuna is put into a dilemma. His wife Draupadi is saying, no, don't kill Ashwatthama, be compassionate. then Bhima and Krishna are saying, no, kill him. He's an aggressor. So, yeah, what can he do? He's for that moment, he's perplexed. But then, being intelligent, he understands Krishna's order. So then Arjuna satisfies these contradictory orders. And understanding Krishna's mind, Arjuna took up his sharp sword and cut the jewel and all the hair from Ashwatthama's hair. And Ashwatthama lost his bodily luster due to infanticide, and his strength due to his jewel. And then he unbound Ashwatthama and drove him out of the camp. So may I argue, how is this satisfying Krishna and Bhima's order? So actually, it said in the scriptures that for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. But just imagine after you've, just imagine, say for example, you've murdered someone, living with the guilt of being murdered and then being dishonored, and then you don't want to show yourself to other people. So actually, that's even worse than being killed, right? So in this verse, it describes how the prescribed punishment for a Brahma Bandhu is they never increase killing, but rather cutting his hair, depriving him of his wealth, and driving him from his residence. So Ashwatthama was born with a beautiful jewel on his head and was consequently strong, beautiful and famous. But without the jewel and hair, and having lost his famous reputation, Ashwatthama was good as dead. And that, again, for one who has been honored, dishonored is worse than death. And in this way, Ashwatthama was killed, yet not killed by the intelligence of Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Does anyone have any questions, any comments, any corrections?
There were 3 questions in the chat from iPhone.
Yeah.
So if iPhone, you want to unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah.
iPhone, would you like to unmute yourself and ask? Are you still on there? If not, I'll just ask. Okay, so the first question from iPhone was, is Ashwatthama still alive today due to the punishment he got, which was to die at the end of this yuga?
To be honest, I'm not very sure, but I think I'm assuming he's not here now. But I'm not 100% sure, but I guess he's not here at the moment, from my understanding.
And the second question from iPhone again was, what is it that Ashwatthama Ashwatthama was going to cut the heads off the Pandavas, but because their sons changed the tents, which they were due to sleep in, he killed the sons instead?
That's correct, yeah. Ashwatthama wanted to actually kill the Pandavas, but instead he ended up killing the sons. Because they changed the tents, and because it was dark, he couldn't see who it was. So yeah, it was even a worse act on his part to kill his sons than the Pandavas themselves. So you're correct in saying that. Yeah.
And then the final question from iPhone is, does Arjuna, when he releases the Brahmastra, then recovers both as he has been taught this by Ashwatthama's father?
When Arjuna releases the Brahmastra, it was the question again.
So does Arjuna, when he releases the Brahmastra, then recover both as he has been taught this by Ashwatthama's father?
That's correct. So actually Ashwatthama's father, Dronacharya, was Arjuna, Ashwatthama's and Duryodhana's military arts teacher. And he taught Ashwatthama how to use the Brahmastra, and he also taught Arjuna how to use the Brahmastra. He taught Ashwatthama because he was a son, And he also taught Arjun because he was his favorite student. And you could imagine, his favorite students fighting against the sun. And so, Dronacharya, Arjun was very dear to Dronacharya. And so that's why Arjun had so much respect for Dronacharya, because without him, he would not know how to fight so well. Yeah, and that's why we see that, like I said, when thinking about killing Ashwatthama, he thought twice, because he had gratitude towards his dad, basically. Is that okay?
I'm not sure if iPhone's still there or not, but thank you, Mataji. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice class. Very thank you. It's really like everything so nicely understandable. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining.
I just want to
Hare Krishna
add.
Mataji. Sorry. Hare Krishna Mataji, I think Ashwatthama is still alive, isn't it? He's one of the
Yes,
Chiranjeevis.
I also thought so. Yeah.
He's still alive, and I think he will not be given a death easily, because this is like he's dead, but he's still alive. That's his punishment for this infant Balahatya or infanticide. And so he will go at the end of Kali Yuga. That's what they say. So after this old millennium, then he'll be annihilated, I think.
Thank you for correcting me. I mean,
No worries.
And
I'm not
one
sure.
more
This
thing
is what we
I
know.
would.
But, yeah.
Yeah, me too, because I also know the same thing. And also one more thing, that
Mhm.
when they were taught about the Arjuna was only given, he was the only person who knew how to recall it back, whereas it was not taught to his son, even though
Yes.
it was being taught by his father. So
Hmm.
father has taught only to Arjuna how to recall that one. And so the God had commanded that you recall both of them back now.
That's correct.
That's correct, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
correct. And he knew that Arjuna has all those qualities. So he knew that he would, even though he would give him a nuclear bomb in his hand, he would not use it. So that is why I think Dronacharya taught him this other, how to
Yeah.
counteract that Brahmastra.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, you're right. Anyone else? Any comments, corrections, and questions?
Really nice class. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
Nice, Mataji. Thank you so much for enlightening us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tolerating me. Yeah.
No, it's very nice.
You
Beautiful
want,
class and lovely singing, Mataji.
Thank you.
did you want to quickly share those slides, or we've got a couple of minutes if you wanted to share those?
Do you have time?
How long? There's a couple of minutes, so potentially.
Do you have 10 minutes? Okay. I'll share the slides with everybody, but there's this nice there's this article that Mahatma Prabhu has wrote about forgiveness. So I'll share it with you guys if you don't mind staying for a little while. So let me. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, Mataji.
So there's this article written by Mahatma Das that says living by the principles of forgiveness, and so there's key points in this. It says the scriptures are replete with stories and instructions on forgiveness. Srila Prabhupada writes in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 15, verse 40, that it's the duty of a Brahmin to cultivate forgiveness, a virtue that shines like the sun. Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is pleased with one who forgives others. Krishna likes it when you forgive others. And then Mahatma Das says that forgiveness is a choice. That forgiving someone who has deeply hurt us will probably be the hardest thing that we've ever tried to do. But no matter how many excuses we make, forgiveness is our choice, he says, right? So, and he says that he goes on to say that a devotee is always ready to forgive. So Krishna never tolerates insults to the lotus feet of the pure Vaishnava. However, Vaishnava However, a Vaishnava is always ready to forgive such insults. Always ready means that forgiveness is unconditional. So forgiveness does not require us to be supportive or to say if someone's hurt us, right? It doesn't require us to be supportive or to try and rebuild our relationship if you think that that relationship could cause physical, emotional, or spiritual damage. But it means freeing ourselves from the resentment towards the abuser and then praying to Krishna to forgive and bless the person who has hurt us. If we don't do that, the resentment will continue to hurt us, not only spiritually, but also emotionally and physically. And Mahatma Prabhu says that if you forgive, the result is that it always brings us closer to Krishna. So how do you know if you've forgiven completely? And Mahatma Prabhu gives certain points on this. So he says that resentment has settled in you if you sharpen a tooth on someone and experience bitterness in the heart, are filled with hatred and feel sorry for yourself. You cannot accept the fact that a person who has committed a terrible act against you will not be caught, exposed, and will not suffer negative reactions for his behavior. Want the whole world to know what he has done. So you keep telling people, look at what that person has done to me. Look at how bad he is, You constantly think about what your abuser has done, remembering and reliving what happened. And then if you do any of the above, Mahatma Prabhu says it fuels the thirst for revenge. Okay? So, but when you actually forgive someone completely, you can still remember what happened, but you no longer cling to the resentment. And if you no longer cling to the resentment, you're freed from your negative emotional energy. So forgiveness doesn't mean calling the wrong right, but we need to develop this quality, and to generate generosity, we must choose to forgive all the time, not just once. We practice forgiveness because we value our relationship with Krishna more than the desire to see our enemy punished. And the more insult we could forgive, actually, the more mercy we will receive. It takes tremendous spiritual strength to forgive a person or organization that has hurt us deeply. But the positive side of the situation is that it gives you the opportunity to forgive, and it gives you a chance to make significant progress on the spiritual path. So in that sense, we are lucky to have been wronged because it gives us the opportunity to better understand ourselves and ever change our consciousness. And then he may argue that, Mahatma Prabhu goes on to say, actually, you bless your enemy. So he says that the most sublime form of forgiveness is to pray for the well-being of your abuser. If you're hoping he'll somehow suffer because of his bad behavior, you haven't fully forgiven yet. On the other hand, bringing a criminal to justice doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking revenge. But the devotee is always everyone's well-wisher. If you prayed for your abuser and he received the blessings you prayed for, then you will be happy if you really forgave him. So these are some points on forgiveness that Mahatma Prabhu talks about, and I've given a link to the article itself, and you could read